growing up in North St. Louis in the, I guess that was like early 90s.
Mhm.
I remember like being on the front, playing double dutch, and then like a car will roll by and you hear the wheel squeak, and then everybody would go run and duck. And then like it's over. Then you come back out and you keep jumping, right? But we had community, like our community was very much, we were the house where where all the kids came because we had the hoop.
Mhm.
So, and then my mom loved feeding the babies. So we would like taco night. All the kids would come in and get tacos, and all the babies would eat, and we go play. So we had so much love, like in spite of everything that was happening in like society. Like we knew our neighbors. We went to our neighbors' houses. So I think in some ways it's kind of different than now for a lot of kids. But our neighbors knew that they could send their kids to our house and the kiddos would be fine. And then basketball really found me. It's when I talk about the game, it's really different because my love for the game grew organically. Like I wasn't trying to go play college ball. I wasn't trying, and I have these goals to play professionally. None of that. I was 12 years old and 6'1", just like I am now. And I was coming out of Blockbuster Video on Lindo, right? It was the only Blockbuster in the area. And Luther Coyle, who's now deceased, was at Blockbuster, and he saw me. And I had this, I was this tall with a 12-year-old face. I didn't look like an adult by any means. And he's like, "Hey, do you play ball?" And of course, I say, yeah, because I've been hooping with my brothers in the backyard and whatever guys in the neighborhood, which is a lot different than going full court, playing in the backyard. So he invited me to come play for the Starlights. And I swear to God, Bryan, we didn't know it was an AAU team. We didn't know it was select. We didn't know anything about select sports at all. I was just a tall kid, and someone said, "We need tall kids." And I show up, and then the world opens up to me. So from the Starlights, I played for the Starlights like 12, 13, 14. And this was the first time there was a newspaper article. I remember I saw your interview with Earl Austin Jr., who's a legend. But I remember the first time being in a paper because Earl was the one writing stories about us,
Right.
right? And so there was an article in the paper about us. And then 15, 16, 17, I played with Matthews Dickey with the Hoops, which was, a different experience. So I fell in love with the game super organically. I was really bad when I started, like had no idea what was bound to happen. But once you get better, then I set those goals of playing in college and then playing professionally from there.
Yeah, and it's kind of just that innocence of just like you said, just starting out and just seeing like how society now is that we all like right now, if you have kids that's in like elementary, like they're all picking the select teams to play on, this team, that team, and trying to pair up, friends together. We didn't really know what was about to happen with this whole AAU stuff. It was just like the thing to do if you wanted to just continue to just play sports, and kind of speak on that because you talked about the hoops and Coach Glasgow and just that Matthew Dickey just infrastructure. How important do you think that is for our communities to have some type of outlet like that kids in the neighborhood can kind of just reach to go to, and not to where it's just like something exclusive that they're only going to take the select group of guys? Because you just said when you started off, you didn't know if you were good or not, but it was just an outlet just to play. So talk about how important organizations like that vital for our community and the kids for.
Look, it's a combination between school systems as well as recreation centers. When we started playing, we used to practice in the elementary school in Wellston, right? Luther would take his van and pick us up. Then we'd go to practice and he'd bring us home when parents couldn't provide transportation. I know a lot of coaches are still doing that today, which makes a difference, right? And then
Mhm.
at Matthews Dickey, it was where everyone went to hoop. So we had a place, there was this robust women's summer league. And the key to it, honestly, was funding. Like, we knew that if we weren't playing a game in the summer league, then we were reffing. We were terrible refs, by the way. But if we weren't reffing, then we were doing a clock. We were getting paid somewhere around $20 an hour to referee games back in the mid 90s, which was a
Yeah.
really big deal. So I don't know in depth the infrastructure or where the funding came from, but they had money to pay a lot of kids to do work. So we weren't out,
Mhm.
roaming around doing nothing. We knew we could come to Matthew Zicki and be a part of something really special.
And I know, I think you made a comment about the toll roads. Thinking about that from just back in the day, as far as like it was a certain type of I guess like a rite of passage too, to just that grind is like, not only are you up there, you working the clock, you're around the game constantly, but you building some type of sweat equity in wanting to go to those tournaments. So you know that and I don't recommend this now in our society now, as far as the toll roads, but we literally used to be up on, like, any main intersection, and you have a bucket, you would have your helmet, have your jersey on, and soon as the light would turn red, you would go out and ask for some type of donation to help you pay for, and at the time it was ours, we were trying to fund for nationals. It's not like every week now it's a big tournament that everybody has to go to, but just talk about just building up that sweat equity and playing for teams and organizations um, that I think sometimes our kids kind of, they miss that. I think even today, as far as having, they have a sense of entitlement.
Brian, I still look 3 and 4 times before I cross the street because of those experiences. I'm always like, before I hop out there to just walk. It was kind of what we knew we had to do, but I think you make a great point. There was only one big event that you really needed to fund, and it was a very big deal. We didn't play 100 games in the summer. We didn't travel a lot outside of the region unless it was nationals, and going to nationals was a big deal. And so the landscape has really changed, and it forces us to ask, especially considering the pandemic, is all of it really necessary, and how much is too much? And those type of questions I'm really happy are being talked about now. And when you are out there all day, you feel a different level of attachment to wanting to get there. You don't think that it's the gift. My parents couldn't afford to pay. And it was my
Right.
mom was out there, my brothers were out there. I was like, one of my cousins visited from Memphis. He was out there. Like, we all knew that we had to like help make it happen, not just for us, but for all the other girls who would participate, because we wouldn't have gone. No
Right.
way.
And then it just made for just that, like you said, just that special moment of knowing, okay, once we reach this, because it wasn't that, again, we didn't know who was ranked at the time, or we just knew that we wanted to get to this event. It was a chance for us in the city to say, all right, we went to somewhere around a beach, around some water, because I think Florida was like I want to say all my middle school years, either Cocoa Beach, Florida, or Tampa, Florida, was like the place where everybody was trying to go for nationals. And so every year we would just try to we were working just to get there, just to say, and our summer vacation, we're going for nationals in Florida. So but just it made us have some type of sense of pride, even when we came back to city ball, that it made sense of, okay, now we're playing, now we want to take it serious, because now we can say, we've been all over the country or playing there. Now we're going to take it serious once we come back. Did you have that mindset or that approach once you came back, that said, look, I want to make a name for myself here locally in St. Louis?
Instantly felt different, man. Here's the deal. I think we say a lot about the impact that sports has on young people. The exposure is really what makes a difference. It's not necessarily playing the sport itself. It's the fact that we didn't travel at all. We went to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma for the first nationals, Brian, and I still remember walking through the parking lot, looking at the license plates, and seeing that people from all over the country are there to play. And there are all these other places that I've never even heard of that I would love to go visit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the game changer. And then to go to college and then to fly here and fly there, man, would have never gone. I just don't know how I would have ever gone to those places had basketball not found me.
Mhm. And then, like you said, it's one thing that I used to remember was every year they would give us like like a scholastic folder that just kind of mapped out, these are the things you need to do in order to be on track to play collegiate ball. And I remember just having those every year, and it was like it had to be just like the introduction once we first got there, that they always talked about these are the things you need to do to stay on course to be a college athlete. And like you said, just that exposure. If I didn't get that exposure of seeing that, I would know what to expect or even to even start planning my college years out, you know, and we can kind of piggyback and kind of we'll jump back and forth in, but I want to kind of make sure that we hit on that, man. You got a very impressive resume that just like it's it's insane, but I just want to make sure that people understand just like the type of high school career you had, and then uh, transitioning from high school to college. What was that like? How did you prepare to have the high school career that you had, and then was it a shock from you playing AAU ball and then coming right in, let's say dominating at the high school level? So can you kind of talk about that?
At the high school level, I was blessed. Like I was super gifted to have older brothers who are identical twins and larger than me. So look, for those who know me well, I am not competitive. Like my nature isn't competitive. I will sit up and watch butterflies and squirrels all day long. But when you grow up in a house and you say you want to commit to doing something, like it was, I was, I think you can cultivate the competitive spirit because you get tired of getting beat up. And so having brothers who had been there, who were a year ahead of me, who were already in high school and playing competitive summer ball, I was prepared for high school, but I wasn't prepared as you move each level for the speed of play. It's just always, another notch up. And the other thing that you have to prepare for, which you don't understand until you get it, is the mental side. Because you're going to be pushed harder than you ever were. High school season is much longer than AAU. Summer ball is what, March to July?
Right. And
High school,
you may only practice maybe once or twice a week.
exactly. But in high school, you practice every day. You have you don't have more games, but you have way more practices. And then you have to learn all the plays, and you're not necessarily playing with everyone who's extremely committed to the game. They may not have the same talent level. So most of our summer ball, like everybody had dreams of playing college ball. So for many of us, the commitment level of our summer teammates was very different than the commitment level of our high school teammates, which is hard for some people to navigate.
Yeah, no, that's the key because like you said, you once it's kind of hard to even anticipate where someone that and you playing against older people when you come in as a freshman, you're playing against the 18-year-olds, the senior who went through puberty, all type of stuff, and no telling what's going on in their life, and you coming in as a culture shock. Um, but it's one of those things where you said you talk about the speed of the game. Every level, the speed changes. Um, Kind of talk about playing with older people growing up. Like you talked about your brother, but was it a sense of, I guess, with being anointed when someone would pick you up on a team and you playing pickup ball, and it's just like, man, I better not mess up because man, they pick me up, and if I mess up, I might not play no more today.
So here are a couple tips. So being a girl and being one of the only if few girls going to hoop in the neighborhood, I was lucky in a couple ways. One, I had my older brothers, and these cats are 6'5", so I'm they're always going to get picked up just because of their size, stature, and they could play, right? So they get picked up, and they would always be my hype man. So they convince whoever picked them up to pick me up. So I just remember hours and hours of runs and my brothers hyping me up and talking trash to the guy who's guarding me. That was a gift. But the times I would go alone, like bring the ball. I tell every girl, take the ball with you because if you have the rock, then they can't say no. Because most people don't come with their own rock, right? So yeah, those we just lived in the freaking gym. Like we didn't want to do anything. There wasn't much else to do, but we didn't want to do anything else.
Mhm.
But who
Yeah, so let's talk about that. And then as far as the accomplishments, all the accomplishments in high school, did you ever feel like that you went through any type of adversity other like once you got the ball rolling and you start to have some success? Uh, do you feel like you had did you have to go through any type of adversity in high school or even making that transition from high school to college?
Absolutely, all of it. One of the things that I know now that I did know then is the importance of really building close relationships with all of your teammates, like how to communicate effectively with people that you might necessarily vibe with. Biggest transition, like I grew up in the city. I lived in the city and I went to Lafayette, which is St. Louis is one of the few places that had and still has, in a smaller way, but a voluntary desegregation program. It sounds crazy that we're having this conversation in 2021. So I had to ride the bus every day, hour and a half, depending if it was on time and the weather and whether or not I missed it. And then you get home at, practice ends at 5:30. You don't get home until 7. You still have to do homework and try to sleep. And you can't forget anything because if you forget something, there's no going back home to get it. So I think the biggest adversity just was figuring out how to manage time, navigating a completely different cultural norms, being one of few, and by the time I was a senior, the only Black person who lived in the city on my team, and building those relationships. It was different. That part was very, very different. Then you like, oh, it's where I'm from good enough. You have all those identity issues and start questioning, man, that's a whole nother
Right,
show.
but no, but I mean, but that plays a part as far as even just the development as a young person trying to navigate all of these different things. Then on top of that, trying to play a sport, and we always look to even to the basketball as like our safe space. No matter what, if we going through so much, whether if it's socially, whether if it's something at home, relationship wise, I know that for 2.5 hours, I'm gonna just blank out and just play ball, do something that I love to do, and then reality will hit me once I'm through playing. Could you? I mean, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Every most challenging time in my life, in between the lines, was my saving grace. So I don't talk about this a lot, but I got married at 22, right? I was divorced by 25, but I was coaching at Southeast Missouri State. So I'm going through this difficult divorce, but we go undefeated on the road. We win conference, and it was like the best and most challenging time. But basketball was like the saving grace, going through something so emotionally challenging. And the cool thing about ball is it connects you to the world. So right now I'm in Medellin, Colombia. I'm in South America right now. And I was here a few months ago, back in December, but I went to Manizales, Colombia, and did a 3-day basketball training with these basketball. Look, my Spanish, hablo español un poquito, but like basketball connects you to everybody. So yeah, man, it's nothing else like it.
So and we'll talk about that, just all of your travels and everything. And so just talk about just your experience as far as even in college and just picking the right school, because right now we got the class of 2021 is kind of being caught in the squeeze when it comes to all of these different rules with COVID and the NCAA's. Talk about that as far as women basketball, and what do you think should happen, or what do you think is on the forefront for, or even any type of advice that you could give for first the class of 2021 and their parents, and just your overall view of what's going on.
First piece of advice for the class of 2021 and their parents is to be proactive in their college recruiting process. So it's one thing to post a video on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. It's another thing to reach out to 20 coaches and let them know that you're there. Coaches can't go, Division I coaches cannot go out as of right now until the end of May. And they're all recruiting virtually. It's so there's never been a better time where the level field is, where there's an even level playing field, because coaches don't have to sit in one gym and watch one kid. They can actually watch as many kids as they know exist any day and time. So it's actually to their advantage because coaches don't have a choice but to recruit virtually at the Division I level. So first piece of advice, reach out to coaches. It is completely legal to call them, to email them, and you have to be persistent. If you send something once and they don't reach out, that's okay. Like you have to stay with it. The second piece of advice is to consider other levels besides Division I. I understand why people want to play Division I, but honestly, There's only a little over 300 Division I schools, and most of the college basketball that happens, you never see their games on TV, but they're playing at the Division II, Division III, NAIA, and community college level, and those schools still need players as well. So those are the two big pieces. Consider other levels and be proactive and reach out to coaches.
Yeah, because I mean, like right now, it's kind of like it's going to be a, it's like a trickle down effect.
Yeah,
Most of the big time schools they know is based on even the transfer portal is they're going to reach out to certain, 5-star athletes, and then it's going to be a trickle down effect if they don't decide to keep some of their seniors going into next year. And I wanted some of your thoughts. So, Kentucky just passed or the Senate a Senate bill giving high school students another year of high school. What are your thoughts on that? As far as, do you think that that's something that could happen? Do you think it's right? Like what do you think?
I think we have to really ask the hard questions. Why do you want this? Because basketball will end, and there are other experiences. I literally had this conversation yesterday with a friend who played college ball. There are other things you can be learning in addition to basketball that are incredibly valuable for your life that you're going to need beyond basketball ending. So, another year of high school, I think kids will have options. I don't I don't believe in a scarcity mindset, right? Like I really believe in abundance. And if parents believe and kids are willing to work, they will have opportunities. Look, there is no shortage of there's not an abundance of really tough kids who love the game who are willing to play anywhere at any time. If you have a kid who fits that criteria, there's a coach that wants him or her. No question.
Mm. That's real because yeah, I don't understand that as far as what's the purpose of that, and then when does it stop? If we're gonna give another high school student based on the sports, then you're gonna have a parent that's gonna be upset about choir or any type of other activity that they should get another year because no one came out to the play or no one came out to this. So when does it stop? When does it end?
Exactly. Now I think that's a bit absurd, and I think now is the perfect time to re-examine the the um, tensions and problems within youth basketball specifically. Is there a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah, and then I think the NCAA is to blame too when they granted a lot of the players that extra year of coming back. It's just kind of like it just created a whole monster that now kids are gonna, not to say it's gonna be a lost generation, but it's gonna be a class that if you go out of sight, out of mind a year, it may be hard for you to jump right back on. But it may, what you should be planning for is having other doors open up and not just I felt like it was we had to hit the reset button when it came to a lot of this stuff as far as games, how the way we train, how the way we teach the game. We had to hit a reset button and just go back to the essentials of maybe we have to just break down mentally the kids as far as putting them on track to say, why are you doing this? And do you really love the game? And then teaching them it's so many different levels to the game as opposed to just putting the ball in the hoop and running up and down. Right now, if me and you played today, we can probably go out and beat some high school kids because we're thinking on a higher level of just simplicity of how to simply play the game.
absolutely no question, no question.
So nah, all right. And so being an author, so you've penned a number of books. How did you have that love of just reading and just putting things out in that form, in that format? As for like, was you an avid reader growing up, and what were some of your favorite books growing up to kind of put you in a perspective of getting to the point where you wanted to write books?
I've always liked school. It's a bit of a nerd. Like I love school. I love going. I love learning. I've always been really curious.
Mhm.
And so when I was in college, I used to I majored in communication and minored in African American studies, and we would have these research papers, 20, 25-page papers. And this is only I know this in retrospect. I didn't know it at the time, but I really enjoyed like gathering information, synthesizing it, writing these papers. It wasn't a big deal. You know, I do 5 pages a day, submitted, it was fine. So when it came time to write the book, that was already practice that I had done um, writing so much in college. And the first book was actually a speech that I gave to a group of students when I was coaching at SEMO. They were a group of students part of the Upward Bound program. It's like a college prep program, college readiness program. And they liked this speech. And I kept that same framework and kept giving that speech for a few years. And then my mom said, like, you should write a book. You should write a book. So my mom kept planting these seeds. And then I just did some research and started writing. And that was one of the things I'm most proud of, the first one.
So even just growing up, like what are some of the books right now that either you're currently reading or that you can kind of just say if it's a student out there or if it's a parent out there that just say, hey, you should probably pick this up for inspiration to kind of help out other than your books, because we're gonna plug that everybody should have your books and be following along with all of the great information that you're putting out. But even just as far as like for folks that enjoy that and then want to piggyback off of that, to just because you never know how this can kind of it can it can start something, it can spark something in a young person's mind.
Absolutely. This is one I have it near. Can you see that High Performance
Hmm.
Habits
Hmm.
by Bryan Bouchard? This
Yeah.
is one that's been a game changer. So the essence of the book, beyond the title, is that he researched people who perform at a high level consistently over time. And there are habits that they have that allow them to continue to perform at a high level. And part of it is
Hmm.
gaining clarity, knowing what skills you want to learn, but it's a lot of inside work and self awareness. That's the whole game, right? It's figuring out how you tick, what makes you tick, and deciding what you want. So, high performance habits, highly recommended
Hmm.
for everyone, for parents, for kids, and you can pull from it. But those 6 habits, if we can teach young people that their habits are ultimately going to create their destiny, and their habits can ultimately kill whatever they think they may want. That's the game. It's not about us telling them what to do. It's about them understanding who they are and making conscious decisions to have the habits to get to wherever it is they want to be. So
Yeah,
that one is,
having those positive habits, because and even as coaches, like we stand in a position where we able to just kind of mold a young person's lives, and we have to live it too. I try my best to make sure that I put certain energy, like a certain energy out there to where people can kind of feed off of that, because even with like this generation of just young folks, like no matter what you tell them, they watch more than anything. And so you can't be sitting around saying this and then going out the back door doing this, because they can sniff that out real quick, you know what I mean? And it's just like you have to try your best to just walk it more than just kind of just talking it. So and then let's just talk about just like your college experience. So you majored in communication, because I think that's another thing too, that we have to make sure that we preparing our kids to, and as much as we love basketball, it's a lot of basketball players out there. Having an idea of what you want to do in college once you get there, and work at that, and then have it, make it to where you can transition out, because it's only a small number of us that are blessed to play professionally, but you can try to play or do something professionally in another realm. But just having that mindset of the ball is going to stop bouncing one day. So just talk about just how you navigated through through college playing ball, and then having the foresight to say, look, this is what I want to do after I finish.
well, playing ball was amazing. Like college, there's nothing else like college ball. It is incredible, absolutely incredible. It's hard as hell, especially at the Division 1 level, every level, right? Because you're still working, but Division
Mhm.
One, you're basically on call. The rules are a little different right now. There are restrictions around how much players can be in practice. We had restrictions, but they're more enforced, for lack of a better word, now. But to be able to travel to play in big arenas, like I'll never ever forget playing at Louisville and DePaul. I mean, we played in some really amazing
That was
arenas.
Conference USA, right?
Yeah, we were Conference USA back then. Marquette. I mean, we played we went to Puerto Rico, first time out of the country, played Tennessee, and Pat Summitt was still coaching. And I remember, I will never forget, man. I remember before the game, I've always like, I'm like talking to my team about we just have to be better than them for 40 minutes. We only need 40 minutes to be better. And we come out on fire, hype. We have nothing to lose, right?
Right.
Pat calls a timeout, gets in her team's ass, like rips them apart. Game was over from there. Like after that, we had no chance. And they brought tons of people to the game. But like that stuff we remembered. We remember forever. First team to go to postseason play at SLU. So college was hard and it was good. In terms of prepping for after, I had no idea. Like I had zero foresight at all. Because what happens to kids, especially where we're from, going to college is perceived as the win. Like we're not talked to about like just to play Division 1%, 1% of people do that. So there's this assumption that we know by virtue of being there what it's going to take to thrive after. Man, I had no clue. Stood in front of the mirror graduation day, thinking, "Holy shit, this is over." I know I wanted to play ball professionally, but I didn't really know how that was going to happen. So, the grace of God, I got an agent who, my coach knew a coach who connected me with her, and I signed a contract with this agent. But as everyone will tell you who plays ball overseas, you don't leave immediately. So there's this time after graduating where you're like, I'm going to work out. And people are like, "Hey, you graduated. Good job, Angie. I'm so proud of you. What are you doing now?" Waiting to go overseas. You just don't know. So I ended up working at this job I had, this girls club, YWCA, on SLU's campus. I was making like $8 an hour after graduating from college. So I highly recommend others plan better. Like if there are young women who are in college now, plan better. Also, stack as much cash as you can. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about money often. We got to talk about money a lot more to athletes because all of this stuff costs and you want to have options. So like stack your cash. Maybe don't go to a tournament and save that money and invest it. Then, we have to talk about money a lot more because there are so many athletes who end up broke. Like I had nothing but a bunch of credit card debt because that was we're old enough that back in the day, credit card companies could come on your campus, give you a t-shirt for signing up for a credit card. You can't do it now because that's predatory, but I had a bunch of credit card debt and no job without a clue what I was going to do next.
Yeah. And then just knowing that you could, I like to tell a lot of the guys, like, if you feel like that, basketball is your calling and that you want to really do that, after you graduate, you finish, like it's going to be certain agents and certain folks, they can find you somewhere to play. Like if you really, really want to play, they find you somewhere to play. But this is where you have to, like you said, look yourself in the mirror and realize, do I really want to do this? Because playing ball overseas and just starting all over, it's just like any other low entry job. You have to start at the bottom and then work your way up. Now, are you able to do that and try to, be off somewhere where you don't speak the language? Everything is foreign to you. Are you willing to make that sacrifice? And if you are, then you have to understand that, like you said, once you reach college, it's not that I've arrived. It's the journey is just started. And the same goes as once you graduate. Don't look at it as like I've arrived and I'm ready to play pro ball. You're just starting off, So talk about just your experience and like your first year, because you played over in Germany, and just like a culture shock of just being out by yourself and like, how am I going to do this? And if I really want this.
From the time I landed in Frankfurt, so I went from like St. Louis to Chicago, Chicago to London, London to Frankfurt. What I know now that I didn't know then, if you have all those layovers, you are on the cheapest flight possible. Okay? So I end up there and I don't speak German. Look, I grew up in North St. Louis. There's no German. No one speaks German around me. And I get there and they lose my bag at the airport. And so I'm trying to communicate with the person about my bag. I have no clue what they're saying. Someone comes and translates for us. And we ended up, I had to fill out a form that said they would send my bag whenever they found it. I remember, Bryan, going into the bathroom, bawling. I'm 21, another country. Like, cell phones aren't working back. We don't have international phones
No.
back then. All I have are credit cards, right? So I go in the bathroom, like, bawling. And I have no money to go back. Like, you got to figure it out. So I literally said to myself, you chose to be here. No one made you come. Figure it out. I find the train. I have to ride an hour on the train. I find my agent. And it was amazing, though. But anytime you go after anything, you will have bumps in the road, and you're going to be tested to see how bad you want it. Man, look, my goal is to play in the WNBA after college. There was this pro combine. You know, they have them for seniors every year. I get down to the combine, and people are leaving. It was in New Orleans, Final Four, 2004. People are leaving. And I asked the person who organized the event, like, why are y'all leaving? She said, oh, why is everyone leaving? She said, we changed the time. Man, I was crushed. I had been working. They changed the time. And from that moment, I was like, you know, I'm never going to miss an opportunity because the time changed. Ever. That's why I hit you up today for the podcast. I'm like, yo, we still on for, noon.
Yeah.
We don't miss. So you will be tested time and time and time again. And that's going to determine
Not. And then just even
impossible.
And even just talking about just building relationships, were you able to just have relationships or just people that you stayed in contact with to just help you in the next realm of your career? Or just talk about just the importance of just making sure that you build networks and build relationships with folks, because you never know when, you may be called on. And then also too is making sure that, you stay ready and presentable no matter what, because you never know when an opportunity will present itself.
Here's the greatest piece of advice that I could give to young people in high school or college. Help people, like serve people, and ask adults or people who are in a position where you want to be, what was their journey? Don't ask them to give you anything, because people want to share and good people want to help good people. So yes, there are so many. And what I didn't know then that I understand now is you never know when people are going to come back and look, we hadn't talked since I don't know when. Like, you reconnect with people. So be good to people along your journey, because you don't know who's watching and you don't know who's going to be able to help you or who you can help. But always reach out to help first. Those referees, your coaches, your teachers, your friends' parents, you will need people. This whole rugged individualism isn't real. Like, you need people every step of the way.
Yeah, and Amy, you brought up a good point, because when you talk about just serving people, and I just think the coaching aspect of it is, I think coaching is like it's a noble position. It's a noble type of job, to where I don't feel comfortable even just presenting myself in a certain way, because I'm here to help the next person. When you break down the word coach, it's one person is trying to get somebody to the next stage of their life. So that's what it is, and just in the essence of a word. So it's applying that to your day to day and your approach to to no matter what game it is, if it's football, if it's soccer, if it's anything, it's just using that approach um, that I live by. So I mean, would you agree? Would you agree to that?
Absolutely. Coaches have so much power to help young people recognize who they are, but then also how to prepare for life. Coaching it's a very unique and special role, and I think when coaches remove their egos from the team, then you can really do some special things for young people and learn for them too. It's a two-way street, because they're constantly teaching us as well.
Yeah. So talk about I got a couple more questions that I kind of want you to answer, just as far as um, the mental health is always I guess it's like a buzzword or like a keyword that everybody talk about, but just talk about some of the things that you're able to do, and just kind of to help you just kind of cope with just being around the game. I feel like basketball, it gives me a whole lot of fulfillment, but it also has a lot of stress that's involved too. So how do you manage, staying on task, just doing this climate that we're in right now?
that I try to do is to be still. When you're in a highly competitive sport, whether it's basketball or any physical sport or even business and building, you have to slow down and really assess why you're doing what you're doing and if what you're doing actually helps the people that you're serving, and if it helps you, can it help you get to that goal? So I'm very reflective, man. I will sit and think for hours to just evaluate all the people who I'm connected with, who are helping, whether it's a basketball program or the young people who, I've trained, or something that's coming, to make sure that I'm intentional about it. Because what can happen is we can watch everyone else who's in the same space, their YouTube videos, their Instagram, and then we end up like doing what they're doing when in fact that it doesn't really align with the core of who we are. That's one. The second thing, I breathe intentionally. So there are times when we all get like our heart starts racing for whatever reason. And I have to intentionally tell myself, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. It's called self-soothing, right? It's okay. Just relax. It's gonna be okay. Just chill out. I have to have that, and then I can make a better decision once I'm calm. So those are a couple of things, and of course, sleep and water. Eat healthy, sleep. Stretch, especially at this age.
Yeah.
Um,
Man, people get on me so much because I tell them what time I go to sleep. And I mean, just working in the schools, I mean, we have to get up early anyway, but it's funny when I I joke with folks because people think that I'm just like a night owl. And I'm like, look, if you call me at 7 o'clock, 7:30, it's a chance I'm gonna be up under the covers, knocked out, sleep, and the first thing that somebody say was, is when I tell them my age, they sometimes they don't believe me, but I'm just like, look, I go to sleep at night. I try to get as much rest as possible. And I know it's kind of cliche when you always hear folks talk about keep grinding, keep working, keep grinding, keep grinding. I've tried that. I've done that, but your body is going to always tell you when you need to slow down and chill out, and it's just one of those things that look, you might have to learn the hard way. I'm trying my best to recover from an Achilles injury that I had 2 years ago. And now it's kind of like I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable getting back to doing things. But I have to keep that in the back of my mind. Like the moment I start going hard, it's a chance where my body is gonna say, look, you need to, old man, you need to chill out.
Absolutely. Well, and to your point, everybody's body is different. So you might need to sleep at 7, whereas somebody else, they're perfectly fine staying up until 2. And that's key, is like understanding when you're at your best and what it takes to be at your best, which is a lifelong journey, because what we need at different times change.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so what's going on right now? So you say you in Colombia. So tell everybody what you have going on, what's kind of planned out. I appreciate your time. So I'm eager to hear what's going on too. Cause like I said, you've always I've sat back, I guess I would say in the shadows, and I've just been admired of all of the different things you've been able to accomplish. And so it's just one of those things where I'm just eager to just hear, what you have going on next. So
Sure. Back in December, I came to Medellin, and through a basketball connection, was connected to a team in Manizales, Colombia. So it is about a 30-minute flight from here. And basketball in Colombia, specifically women's basketball, is growing. And so I'm here to build deeper connections and to really figure out how we can build some partnerships, because there's a lot of young women who want to come and play in other parts of the world. However, they don't necessarily want to go 7 hours away, to Europe. I'm only an hour ahead. So I'm on Eastern time right now. When the US changes time, I'll be on Central time. The climate is amazing. So there's a really good opportunity for growth and to build connections to our young women in St. Louis, because that's always like center of my heart space. And then also other young women throughout, to let them know that the world is really their opportunity and they can still be connected to the game, but experience what it's like to be in other parts of the world. And so that's part of it. The other part is I have clinics, basketball camps and clinics coming up in the States. So I'll be back in a few months, and we'll run we're doing a mother child clinic, or mother figure in child
Mhm.
clinic. Doesn't some people's mom are deceased, or the relationship isn't there, the mom isn't near, so it could be any woman who has a positive impact, auntie, cousin, grandma, whoever, as long as she's 18 and older, so it's an adult. And we're going to run those at the center of Clayton, and that is May 8th, the Saturday before Mother's Day. So
Okay.
parents are always on the court with their kids. I know you see it, right? Especially the little ones. So
Yeah.
this is an opportunity for everybody to play together. We'll do a Mother's Day. We'll do the same thing Father's Day. So the Saturday before Father's Day, we'll get a bunch of dads, and they'll come out with their kids, girls or boys. So the mother's clinic is for girls or boys and their mom. It's really about the mom. It's not, the gender doesn't matter of the child. And then there's a third through eighth grade camp we have at the end of July, and a high school camp at the first week in August. And those are with this at the center of Clayton, which is a great kind of central facility. And this just got solidified, which is why I wanted to switch our recording date, because it wasn't official on our first date. But all of that is coming and happening, and I'm super excited about that.
Man, nah, like I said, I just want to thank you for all that you do for the sport of basketball, and just being a role model and just, just an enlightening figure because um, whether if it's, man, woman, whoever, like you've put in the work, you people can Google your name and see that you're not just talking it just to be talking it. Like you've went through it and not just like I said, through a lot of the tough circumstances, you've overcome, like you said, you fall through so much adversity. You continue to grow as a person, continue to grow as a professional, and I just think your story just needed to be told and just put on highlight because a lot of times people may not know, and from the people who your connections and your network hear this and listen to this, and then the people who I've have came to just know me will hear this, and I just think it's positive all the way around for the game of basketball, for education, for leadership, like all of the above, man. Just continue to keep doing the work. I just appreciate your time though.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for reaching out. I mean, you're doing amazing work as well. The standard that you set for the young men that you coach, that your presence is undeniable. Is undeniable, and what you stand on really matters. The respect, integrity, all that stuff makes a difference, man. Because what happens, and as a player, we look to our coaches to figure out how to be as adults. They're typically the first professionals away from our family, like our parents who we know. And so the impact of the coaches are lasting beyond what we may even ever fully understand.